we'll be able to send you the link to the recording after we're done. So my name is Diarmuid Stokes, and I am the College Liaison Librarian for the College of Health and Agricultural Sciences and also the College of Science. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Vanessa.
Hi, so I am Vanessa Buckley and I'm the College Liaison Librarian for Social Sciences.
So what we're going to be covering today is Introduction to Searching for Systematic Reviews, as we said. So what do we hope to cover during this session? We're just going to make sure you know what a systematic review is. Also, not all reviews are systematic. There are blends available there, so we're just making sure you're aware of those because it might be appropriate to do one of those. The need to be systematic. How you go about building up a systematic and suitable search strategy. We're going to talk about other sources of information and also a bit on how to manage your results and how to locate the full text. So there's a lot to be covered there today. We may not get through everything, but the information will be on the slides. We have a time limit on what we can get covered. So what is a systematic review? A systematic review is a means of identifying, evaluating, interpreting all the available research relevant to a particular research question or topic area or phenomenon of interest. Individual studies contributing to a systematic review are called primary studies, and a systematic review itself is a form of secondary study. And we've seen a lot of increase during COVID of systematic reviews because you don't need an ethics approval for this. So just to give you an idea of some of the key components of what's involved in a systematic review, you have to start with a clearly stated set of objectives with predefined eligibility criteria for studies. So it's very different from a literature review in that case. You have to have an explicit reproducible methodology. You have to develop a systematic search that you will then extrapolate over multiple databases. You have to have an assessment of the validity of the findings, and you have to do a systematic presentation and synthesis of the included studies. And this all ties into what is known as the evidence-based information pyramid. And the higher you go up this pyramid, the better or the higher the quality of the information is. So you start at background information or expert opinion, and you work your way up by increasing the synthesis and evaluation of the information up to systematic reviews and meta-analyses. And as I said, while we're talking here about systematic reviews has given rise to a number of other reviews, such as scoping reviews, state-of-the-art reviews, umbrella reviews, rapid reviews. So a lot of what we're going to be talking today is relevant, even if you're not doing a systematic review. And just to give you an idea of what a rapid review is, and you can, as we go through the session, you might pick out some of the differences yourself. It is, like the name implies, a quicker review, and it's allowed to happen by omitting some of these steps, which can make it somewhat less rigorous. And it's really appropriate for new or emerging research topics. The time frame could be less than 5 weeks. Narrow question, you could be using PICO, and there's obviously limitations in the sources and searches as well. One of the big areas that I have personally seen a big growth area is in scoping reviews, and these are used as preliminary assessment of potential size or identifying the nature and extent of evidence in a topic, and it may then lead on to a further systematic review as well. This could be about 12 months. It deals with broader and topic-focused questions. You still need all the rigor of a systematic review as well. And this may not look like a really, really interesting slide, but the link there at the bottom will lead you to a very good web page that will give you more information on the various types of reviews that are out there. So it might help you decide which flavor of a systematic review do you want to do yourself. It's really, really important also to emphasize that a systematic scoping, etc. review are not done by one person. It's done by a team. And the reason for this is, one, you're trying to minimize bias. So you do need the other people's input to help you with that. The sheer volume of the work involved can be too much for one person to do. So you do need a team behind you to help you go through this process. So what we're going to do, we're going to get you to do some of the work here yourselves. So one of the questions we want to ask you is, where do you think you would be finding information for a review? So we have a link here, and Vanessa is going to put it in that link into the chat. And if you can go out to that page, just tell us, where do you think you will be searching for information for if you were doing a review, whether it's a scoping or a systematic review or a rapid review. So I'm going to stop sharing there. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing the presentation, and I'll go to, oops, we're already getting people putting in loads of information. So let me put it up there, and we can see the word cloud appearing. So yes, databases, Prospero, and we'll be talking about Prospero later on. UCD Library, always good to get a shout out for their Web of Science, PsycInfo, PubMed, Archive, Ask a Librarian, very good. ORCID, Google Scholar, Elsevier, fantastic. So there's loads of places. I'm glad to hear we have snowballing. We're going to be talking about snowballing later on. Science Direct, Scopus, fantastic. So everybody's been thinking about where they're going to be looking for information. So that's brilliant to see. We will be talking a bit about some of the limitations about some of those resources later on, but that's fantastic. It's great to see so many people putting in their information. So so we're going to move on from that and go back to our presentation. So as you pointed out, there are loads of places. So you've mentioned some of the databases as well that you could be searching. We had snowballing, which we will talk about in more detail later on. I didn't see grey literature coming up. So some people will be using grey literature as an added source of information. You might be using hand searching, where you've identified certain resources or certain journals that are not available through the databases, and you search for them as well. So there will be multiple strands, but having said that, your primary discovery tool is going to be the databases. So it's really important that you get familiar with the databases and be sure that you got the appropriate databases for whatever question you're trying to answer. Okay. Also, just want to take this chance to mention about the PRISMA statement. And PRISMA is a really important part of your review, and it is an evidence-based minimum set of items aimed at helping authors to report their systematic reviews and to run their systematic reviews. So it's a good checklist to help you when you're writing up, to make sure you've got all the bits and pieces of a review that you're expecting you to have. It's comprised of two parts. There's a 27-item checklist, and there is also a flow chart as well. And we've put the links in the presentation here for you as well. And this is what the PRISMA flow diagram, and this is really important for help you to document the searching and the screening process. So I would recommend, as soon as you start doing your search for real, that you would start filling this in, because it's very easy to forget the exact details. So how do you get started? Or, well, sorry, went one too far. So these are sort of the main steps involved in doing your systematic review. You're going to start off by getting your question, and the nature of the question will depend on whether you're doing a systematic review where it's a very tightly focused question, or a scoping review where it's more generalized. You need to develop a protocol, and the protocol is where you set out in advance what you're going to do. So you have to really think about that. One of the links that came up in the word cloud was Prospero, and that's one of the places where you can register your protocol. We're going to be giving you some help in locating studies, and then we'll talk about how you apply your inclusion exclusion criteria, which are mentioned in your protocol, to select the relevant studies. You'll obviously assess the study quality, you'll extract the data, you do an analysis or summary and synthesis of the relevant studies, and you're obviously going to present the results when you publish them as well. So when you get your question, it's really important that you have thought about your question and make sure that it's a question that can be answered. And even the Cochrane handbook, and the Cochrane are sort of like the people who've really started systematic reviews, clearly state that you should frame the question that the review seeks to answer, and that a well-formulated question will guide many aspects of the process, including your eligibility criteria, how you're searching, collecting studies, etc. So really think about your question, because it's the fundamental thing that's going to drive you forward. While you're starting to build up your protocol and get familiar with your topic, you're going to try and see what previous studies are out there. You'll be looking for, might be looking for existing systematic reviews to verify that somebody just hasn't published the exact same review that's been done, to check that there's no protocols of stuff that's in progress, to identify related systematic reviews that you need to check the reference list for relevant primary articles. And also you can use the systematic reviews or previous protocols to help you develop your own search strategy, because they should be reporting how they're going to do their search strategy. So where can you start looking for these existing reviews? So you can look for in the Cochrane collaboration for systematic reviews dealing generally with health and related areas, the Campbell Library for crime, justice, social welfare, etc. If you're looking for the protocols, you can look in Prospero. And you can search in the databases themselves. So you can use the databases, run your search, and then you can limit your search by the type of article. In this case, is going to be a systematic review, and limit it to that. You need to develop your protocol, as I said in advance, and your protocol is going to describe the rationale, hypothesis, or research question. It should be then used, it should be prepared before a review is started and used as a guide as you go through the review. It should be, as I said, developed before you properly start the searching, and ideally should be registered in some place like Prospero. So I mentioned inclusion exclusion criteria as one of the aspects of your protocol. So you should be thinking about what type of studies you're interested in, the type of participants. Are they male, female? Do they have certain conditions? What intervention are you investigating? Is it a rehabilitation? Is it a lifestyle change? Is it surgery? And what kind of outcome measures? Is it educational outcomes, social progress indicators, quality of life, etc.? And they're also going to help you sort of build up your search strategy as well. Selecting your sources. So where are you going to start searching? We talked about this briefly when we had our word cloud, where to start looking for information. So it's really important that you identify the appropriate databases for your subject. Don't get comfortable in just one subject area. Always think, is there any other disciplines that are relevant for your question? So if it was medical education, for example, you might be looking not only in medical databases, but you also might be looking for appropriate education databases. And we've listed some of the databases for both health and social sciences. And once again, it's really important that you pick more than one database when you're searching. No matter how big the database is, it clearly does just one chunk of the literature. So you need to develop search strategies or adapt your search strategy from multiple databases. We talked about gray literature. So there's gray literature can be more difficult to search. There isn't one resource that will do everything for you. And we've highlighted some of the resources that are available to you as well. And we mentioned hand searching as well. And that could be newer journals or journals that are not caught by the databases that you're using, you can say in your protocol you're going to hand search them, and that could be a way of retrieving those articles. But as I said already, your primary tool is going to be the databases. So quite a lot of the databases use a framework. Sorry, a lot of reviews use a framework to help them come up with their search strategy. One of the most commonly used, at least at the health side, is PICO. And PICO stands for population, problem, the intervention, I is for intervention, C would be a comparison, and the O is the outcomes. But that's not the only one that's available to you. And this is just a visual of PICO there as well. There are alternatives such as PO for qualitative, and the P stands for populations, the problems, E for exposure, O for outcomes. SPIDER is also used for qualitative. S stands for sample, PI for phenomenon of interest, design is D, evaluation is E, and R is research type. So you need to start thinking about. So I'm going to hand you over to Vanessa now, and she's going to continue on about how you can start getting your keywords.
All right, thank you, Diarmuid. Thank you for that. So Diarmuid has talked you through getting your question, your protocol, and your framework. So once you have those in place, you need to start thinking about your keywords. So you need to brainstorm all the different keywords, as many keywords as possible as you have for your concepts. And you can use use the source as well to help with this. So you have as many keywords as possible. You can always remove terms before you actually do your search if you decide then that they're not relevant. As you have been searching and looking to date, if you've come across relevant systematic reviews, they may have keywords that you can use. And also, if you have articles that you found to date, you can look at them in the databases and see what keywords are given. And this can throw up terms that you hadn't already thought about. Okay, so this is a checklist for what you need to think about when you're looking at your keywords. So you need to think about, is there an alternative vocabulary that could be used to discuss my topic? Are there Irish or American variations in spellings and in vocabulary that could be used? Could I identify a word stem for truncation, such as if I use child, I could get child, children, childish with a particular symbol within the database. Are there common abbreviations, such as for European Union, EU? Are there specific types of cases or examples that I'm interested in? Are there alternative word endings or plurals, such as school or schools? Are there more general terms that I might include in my topic to broaden it? Or are there categories that I'd like to exclude? Are there certain things that I don't want to look at and I don't want to include in my review? So our sample research question is, does social distancing reduce COVID-19 infection rates? So applying the PICO to this, so our P, our problem, our population is COVID-19, our intervention is social distancing, and our outcome is infection rates. There isn't always a comparison. So if you go there to menti.com and think yourself, what other keywords would you use for these terms, and have a brainstorm and put them into Menti there. So I'm going to escape out here, and yeah, it's in the chat there. If you want to, Diarmuid just put it in the chat there for you, so you can follow the link there. Okay, so we're starting to see some there. Coronavirus, corona, yeah. So any other? So you're really trying to think of all the different keywords, all the different ways that your terms, your problem could be expressed, your concept for that, or your population could be expressed, or your patient, your intervention, and then the outcome that you're going to get. Okay, so you can see the big ones there, the ones lots of people are coming in with. So isolation, coronavirus, we have our distancing, 2 meters, 6 feet, restrictions, isolation, infections, absolutely. That's brilliant. Anyone else got any more to add there? Right, that looks great. It looks like everyone's put something in there. Okay, so yeah, you're kind of brainstorming all the different keywords that you have and that you could use. And then, as you said, you can go through them then later and take out ones that you are no longer, that you feel to exclude from your search then at another point. But it's really a sort of initial brainstorming. Okay, so I'm going to go back in now into my presentation. So these are just some of the terms that we thought of when we were brainstorming ourselves. So for our problem, we have COVID-19, our coronavirus, as you had there. For our intervention, social distancing, physical distancing, 2 meters, and our outcome, infection rate and transmission. And then if we had more time, we could add in your terms here. Okay, so this is when you're building your search strategy. So all your terms are talking about, your keywords are talking about the same concept, you're joining with or, then you have and to join your next concept. And again, you're joining those with or and then and for your following concept. So we've got P, R, I, and R, O. Okay, so using those those kind of initial insights that you've gathered so far, you need to develop your search strategy further, and you're going to use your PICO or your spider structure to develop your list of keywords. It's important that you don't have too many different core concepts, but you can have as many search terms as many keywords for those concepts as you can think of, which you can combine with or. And it's good to use both free text and subject headings for your concepts. So subject headings such as medical subject headings or that you get from the database thesauruses. Okay, so we're just going to talk now about some search techniques that can help you in building up your search and building up your search strings and your strategy. Now, it's really important that you document everything as you're going along. So the PRISMA checklist, which Diarmuid talked about, has all the information that you're expected to have recorded, including your search strings, your databases that you searched, etc. And it's important to document all the decisions that your team makes so that you're aware of and in agreement of the decisions that are made, so you're not wondering, why are we doing it in a particular way? So you need to use a research diary to keep a track of all these decisions that are made and to note your searches, what you have found, what you have a copy of, what you've read, and what you haven't been able to get. So this is an example of a research diary. So there you can see the search string, the database that was searched, the limits that were applied, the date that was searched, the number of hits, articles that were reviewed, etc. So there's a record there that you can use when you're writing up. So this is your search toolkit that you're going to use as you're creating your search string. So the first I'm going to talk about is Boolean Logic. So this is the essential tool in your toolkit. So it allows you to narrow, broaden, or exclude items from your search. If you're using and, it's going to narrow your search because you're asking the database to look for those two words, so autumn and child in your records, and both terms have to come back. You can broaden your search with or, so you're asking it to look for either terms, autism or autistic disorder, and it'll widen your search. And then if there is a particular topic that you don't want to look at in your review, you can exclude it, such as if you want to look at autism but not Asperger's syndrome, then any records that contain both references to autism and Asperger's syndrome won't come back because that's been excluded from your search. It's not something that you're looking at. Other search strategies include phrase searching. So that searches for terms as a concept where they appear adjacent to each other. So you're using inverted commas and you're saying, I'm looking for the phrase health policy. So those two words together in that particular order. Otherwise, what the databases will do is it'll look for health and policy, and that will be much less focused, and it'll find the words separate to each other. So if you're using a phrase search, it's going to narrow and focus your search. You can also use proximity searches, which find records which have the terms within a specific number of words of each other in either direction, unlike a phrase search where they're in that particular order. So for an example, would be breast adjacent 3 to cancer. That will retrieve all the records where breast and cancer appear within 3 words of each other in any order. So it narrows your search down, again, focusing your search. And it's especially useful if you're, when you're more familiar with the literature, because you know how the terms and the subject is talked about within the literature, and then so you can use that as a powerful tool to focus and narrow your search. You can also use truncation, which I mentioned earlier, which is where you find the common stem of a word and any endings that you could get. So medic with, in this case, we've used an asterisk there, and we'll get you medics, medicine. So the symbol that's used can change from database to database. So it's important that you check the database to see what symbol is used. Alternative spellings as well. So databases are very literal. So if you ask it to look for color spelled with a U, it's not going to know that there are alternative spellings of color as well. So you need to tell the database there that it's looking for both spellings. So you use a symbol for that. So in many databases, it will be a question mark, but it does, again, change from database to database. So you need to make sure that you check the help. Another way of focusing your search is to do a field search. So you're refining your search to look for your terms within either the title or the abstract. So it'll increase the relevance of the results that you're getting back from your search, which is important as you have to go through your results and screen them. It's also important to use, as well as your keywords, to use your thesaurus within the database for controlled vocabulary. So these are the terms that are used within the database for the same concept, even though within, if different people are talking about the term, they might use different language or different words. Within the database, they have given a specific term to cover all the possible words for that concept. So for example, in mesh, in cancer in mesh is neoplasms. So the thesaurus I change from database to database, so you need to remap or readjust your search each time you move from one database to another, but the keywords will remain constant. So I'm going to go out of my presentation here, and I am going to show you just a thesaurus search within PubMed. Okay, so your thesaurus is in your advanced search, or it's down here under Explore. So I'm going to look for one of my terms, which is COVID-19. Okay, and there I can see COVID-19 is the 5th one down. And if I go in here, it shows me here all these entry terms. So these are all the terms that the authors of the various papers have given when they're talking about COVID-19. So these you can add these to your keywords. So anything that has these terms in it is going under the COVID-19 heading. And there we can see the mesh categories, and we can see COVID-19 there. So then I can select it and add it to my search builder. Sorry, I've obviously done this earlier. So what I would do is I just ask it there to add it to my search builder. Okay, so then you copy this into your search string document. Okay, so you're trying to get as many possible keywords and terms as possible so that you can make sure you're covering all the possible ways that someone could talk about COVID-19. So you're getting back all the relevant records. So again, this is using your search toolkit. Here you can see how you're building your search. So you have your phrase search, you have COVID-19 in your inverted commas. You have there your mesh term added at the end, COVID as a mesh heading. You have your truncation there for social distance, social distancing, and again, infection rate, infection rates. Okay, so this is how you're building up your search. You're bringing in all these tools that we've just talked about. Okay, I'm just going to say just a word about limits. So for systematic reviews, experts recommend that you don't use the inbuilt limits in the databases as they can be prone to error. So instead, they recommend that you use what are called specialist search filters that have been developed by librarians, and you can apply, and they've been approved for use in systematic reviews. Okay, and they'll allow you to narrow your search to high quality study designs or for a particular topic or for a particular age group, and then you can add these. You can combine these with your search strategy. So this is where you can find search filters, some links there. Okay, so as well as searching for material within the database for the published material, you also need to think about material that's published outside of traditional academic publishing, such as grey literature. So that's reports, it's government documents, it's theses, and conference papers and proceedings, etc. And within some disciplines, you know, conference papers are the main way of disseminating research. So they can be very important and relevant. You also have, they're published by various organizations. You can have government departments and agencies, non-government organizations, academic centers, private companies and consultants all publish grey literature. So some of the places where you can find grey literature, you have Lennis, which for health literature published in Ireland, grey literature report and base for international grey literature. You have organizational websites, such as if you were interested in education, the Department of Education would have published reports, TUSLA, you have UNESCO, you have library catalogues as well. You can search OneSearch for dissertations and theses that have been produced in UCD. You can use also Google Scholar to search for grey literature. So you can add more power to your Google Scholar search by asking it to look for a specific website by using a URL or specific file type, and you can also use the Google Advanced Search. As just a word of caution about using Google and the Google personalized search is that the results that come back to you aren't based on the relevance of each web page to the search term that you have entered, but it also takes into account the website that you have used or someone else who's using the same browser has visited through previous search results. So it means that the search results, the ranking of the search results that are coming back to you aren't the same for every user. They'll change. So you need to be aware of that. And this is how you would delete your browser history so that your previous searches aren't taken into account. Okay, Diarmuid mentioned this earlier about hand searching and snowballing. So hand searching is where you manually search selected journals. So if there's a particular journal that is relevant for your subject area, but isn't covered in one of the databases, you can search that journal cover to cover and page to page for relevant articles so that you don't miss them. There's also a snowballing, which is where you use the reference list of a paper and the citations of the paper to identify additional research that would be relevant to you. And Web of Science and Google Scholar are among the databases that have tools inbuilt in them that can track the citations of an article. So once you have all your results, you need to manage them. And so you need to use our reference management tool to help you with this. So in UCD, EndNote is the tool that we use, and Diarmuid is our EndNote expert within the library. So you're going to use your citation management tool to remove any duplicate references that you've got from each individual database. And then again, once you've combined all your databases together, the results from those, you're going to have to dedupe there as well. So you need to dedupe more than once. And this is because the authors' names and journal titles can be displayed differently as you move from one database to another. There also is software available that can help you with systematic reviews, such as Covidence and Distiller SR. So they're both subscription-based, and some schools do have access to those. So it does depend on what school you're in. And then there's Liaison, which is a free online tool. So once you have your results, then you need to start going through them and applying your inclusion and exclusion criteria. So this will have been expressed in your protocol, and you can apply these then by title, by abstract, and by full text. This is just a diagram from, we have a new resource in the library, which is Sage Research Methods, and it has a methods mapping function in it, so you can see the different methods that are used in particular research types. So this is one for systematic reviews, and it shows you the different elements involved in that, and you can go into and get more detail. Okay, this is just a slide about how to get your hands on the full text, and that will be included when the presentation is sent on to you, so you can see how you would access the full text of articles. Just a little bit more on EndNote. So EndNote, as I mentioned, is a reference management tool, which we use in UCD Library and in UCD, and it allows you to gather, store, and manage and share your references. So you can add references manually, and you can also add them from databases and other sources. It also includes a tool called Cite While You Write, which allows you to insert citations and create bibliographies in Microsoft Word. So this is a link to, this is our EndNote guide, and as I mentioned, Diarmuid is our EndNote expert. And this guide here has information about how to add references, how to manage your references, etc. And it also has links to the training. So there are training videos there and training manuals for EndNote 20 on Windows and on Mac, and for EndNote Web as well. And then Diarmuid runs lunchtime clinics, which you can book for, where after you've gone through this training, you can get further help. And this is our systematic review guide. So again, it has links to guides and manuals. It has information about how to prepare for your systematic review and how to search. And here just there is a longer a link on this part of the guide, and the link is there for a longer tutorial on of a UCD Library seminar, which was given on systematic reviews, which you can view there. Okay, so I think I've come to the end. So if you have any questions at all, you can put them there into the chat, or you can unmute yourselves and ask. So thank you very much for your time. I'm going to, will I stop sharing my screen? Yeah.
Hi, thank you a lot for your sharing. So I just have one question about the database for the business topic, because I'm studying at Smurfit Business School. Thank you.
Sorry,
You're mute.
sorry, what was that? Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so I'm studying the Smurfit Business School. So I want to ask about the database for the business topic. Then I can share for the systematic review. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, one of the things we have on the library website is subject guides. So that will be a good place to check for the database we've available for you.